Welcome everybody to the Karate America community live stream. Happy St. Patrick's Day, and it's great to have our special guest tonight. Tonight we have Mr. Kozlowski, welcome sir, from Karate America Pewaukee.
Hello.
And Mr. Holt from Karate America Oregon.
Hi everybody.
Good to have you both on the stream tonight. Thank you so much, and it's really exciting to be with you on the Karate America community live stream. Thank you for making time to sit, hang out with us, and have a chat about some martial arts goodness tonight. We're going to get into it in just a moment. Have a couple announcements to make. Of course, we want to take care of these first. My staff is telling me these are some important things to get out to families and students. So we have spring break camp at our Brookfield Academy coming up March 26th through April 5th. Still have a couple spots open. This is open to the public, guys, so you don't necessarily have to have your child enrolled at Karate America Brookfield or Pewaukee. This is open to anybody's school-age children. So register on the KA app. If you have questions, make sure you follow up with your team. At Pewaukee, that's Mr. Kozlowski, Ms. Phillips. At Brookfield, that's Mr. Hanson, Ms. Hanson. And in Worldwide, that is, of course, Mr. Pieper and Ms. DeWade. We also have summer camp spots still open. We got a ticker here across the bottom. Our website for our summer camp is inspire-camp.com. And you can also register your child for the full summer at either our Pewaukee location with Mr. Kozlowski and his team, or at our Brookfield location. So we have two locations running summer camp at either Brookfield or Pewaukee. And you all are running camp at Oregon, correct, Mr. Holt?
Yes, ma'am, we are.
You still have spots left?
We have some spots left. They're going quick though.
So. Cool. Where, if somebody's in the Oregon, Wisconsin area and they want to sign up, where would they go for information?
They would actually go to our website, kaoregon.com.
kaoregon.com. All right. And we also have at Brookfield and Pewaukee, we have Legacy Night. So this is our kind of instructor training program. It's open to all of our leadership team students and also our legacy students, of course. It's going to be this coming Friday, so 2 nights from now on the 19th from 5:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. at Karate America Brookfield on Calhoun Road, right in the heart of Brookfield. And then coming up here next month, I know it's a little bit early, but not really, because these things have a way of coming up sooner than we think. We have our underbelt graduation and master's team star test on Saturday, April 24th. So I know, Mr. Kozlowski, I'm sure you can speak to this a little bit, but I know instructors are getting out information, announcements. Parents, if you have any questions at all, make sure you follow up with your instructors at your academy. Send emails. If anything isn't clear, I'm sure that the teams are standing by ready to answer all your questions about graduation. If your student is graduating, how it's going to work. We're also going to be doing a live stream about graduation here in a few weeks, so fear not, we're going to be going into more details about that. But anything you wanted to add about how people can prepare for graduation, Mr. Kozlowski?
Sure. So first of all, I want to definitely reaffirm what Mrs. Quirk said about it's not too early to be in a graduation. I think oftentimes I usually get the most questions the week before graduation. Yep. I would love to hear your guys' questions now about those things. The couple biggest things are, first, the striping. Right now, we have already begun black stripe testing in our classes, and we will be doing red stripe testing coming up in a week or two now. So if your student has their black stripe, then they're on track to graduate. Make sure that you guys register for graduation. That's going to be the first big step for you guys. If your student does not have a black stripe yet, then your first step is to reach out to your instructor or your front desk person and ask about that, and see if there's something they need to do to get on track. As we go closer to graduation, then we'll be thinking about the red stripe, and we'll be thinking about the actual day and time, get the belt ready, all of that stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Kozlowski. Mr. Holt, do you all have a graduation coming up soon at KA Oregon?
It's the exact same day.
Exact same day. All right. So
we are on the same schedule.
If parents and students have questions, I have a story created. They can contact you and your team at the academy to ask about anything they need regarding graduation. Is that right?
Absolutely. Information is going to be going out very soon, and registration forms are going out actually next week.
Fantastic.
So, thanks for helping me get a jump on that.
Fantastic. All right, from YouTube, we have a hello with a llama and a bow tie. I already like this.
Bronson, Bron, good to see you, buddy. Thanks for joining.
looks like we have some Mr. Holt fans in the house tonight.
Oh, Cole's family. So good to see you guys. So glad you guys are on. I hope Benny's having a good time right now.
Yep. And Ms. Hanson from KA Brookville is also saying we will be live streaming part of Legacy. So that's pretty cool. Make sure we tune in. It's between 5:30 and 8:30 p.m. Central this coming Friday, the 19th of March. You'll be able to actually get a sneak peek at our Legacy program, which is like really, really exciting. And we have our very own Mr. Pieper, our worldwide lead instructor, saying, very awesome. Thank you, Mr. Pieper. That means a lot coming from you. Thank you for your support. So tonight, our conversation topic, what we're going to be talking about tonight is culture, tradition, reverence in martial arts. And as I was kind of putting together this episode and even talking to you guys about some of the subject matter, I feel like this is kind of like a wah-wah. Who wants to talk about culture and being reverent and tradition? I think on the face of it, some of those pieces seem a little formal, a little stuffy, a little boring. And yet, in our martial arts tradition and what we do every day at Karate America, it's such a key piece. And I don't know, but I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about this, but I don't see it as stuffy and boring. I see it as really rich and engaging. Where do each of you see, in your experience, why do people want to sign up for something with like a bunch of rules where I have to use Mr. and Ms. and yes, sir, and no, ma'am? That seems a little counterintuitive to a fun activity. What has been your experience with why people are drawn to that culture piece in martial arts?
You want to start, Mr. Kozlowski?
Sure, I'll jump in. Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting when I heard you, Mrs. Cork, just say, who would want to talk about that? My first thought was, I do. I'm actually really glad that I got to be the guest this week because this is something that is like actually really near and dear to me. Hey, Mr. Holt's brother's on.
Mr. C. Holt.
There you
Mr.
go.
Holt. Mr. Holt.
Hello, Mr. C. Holt.
Good to see you, sir. For me, that is what to me makes martial arts so unique and special. The reverence and the respect and all of that tradition surrounding martial arts is what makes it so special. And there are lots of different things I could go in on that. I could probably talk for about an hour on that.
We happen to have some time, so.
Oh, good. Then this is perfect. That's probably why I'm on here. I think for me personally, when I first started martial arts, I was 11 years old, and it is the first thing. Hey, Ms. Deacon, good to see you. It is the first time at my life where there was something where I had to be respectful, where I had to not just do an activity, right? Mm-hmm. Instead, think about how I'm doing what I'm doing in a respectful way. And not only that, but I had legitimate reverence for my instructor, Mr. Quirk, right? Because he was an incredible person, a great role model to look up to. And by having those traditions surrounding the role model, it kind of made it, again, even more special. There's something special about Mr. Quirk. To me, he was not a person. This elevated figure almost. And I don't just mean that about the people, but even what we do when we bow in the door, it makes the building special. It's not just a place I go to, it's a special place that is unlike anything else. That same reverence, that same respect, after a while, starts to kind of percolate into the rest of my life. I will share a quick story before I let Mr. Holt share. But my first night after I did my intro class and I was taught to say yes, sir, and yes, ma'am, and to bow at the door, I liked that so much. There was so much about like, ooh, I'm part of this special thing and I get to do that. That night, the rest of the night before I went to bed, every time I talked to my dad and my mom, I said yes, sir, and yes, ma'am, and I bowed at every doorway in my I would bow into the kitchen, say yes, sir, yes, ma'am. And I remember my parents both looked at each other and they were like, maybe this is a good thing.
They were like, where do we sign? Like,
yeah, exactly. And I think that, now not every student has that same experience, but that is what sold my parents on it, right? Yeah. That feeling that I now belong to this place and I knew how to show respect, and how to be reverent. that was something special for me.
Yeah.
Get that in soccer, t-ball, or anything like that. I got that at Karate America.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. I mean, we do have these. I was just talking to a parent about this a few weeks ago. That we have these ritual pieces, right, in martial arts that show up very specifically, like the bowing and how we put on our uniform and how we tie our belts and how we address each other. And what my experience has been, a lot of times adults will be a little bit surprised that we, and you both know this, but we still use our surnames outside of karate. We can hang out with each other. We can be at a picnic. We can be at a party. Some of us have been in each other's weddings and at each other's weddings over the years. And it's like, it's not a costume that we put on and off, right? It's not like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Now we're going to be who we really are. Like, this really is who we are. And we don't use first names. And that's just one example, I think, of those sort of like ritual pieces that just get woven into who we are. And for me, that's one of the reasons why our program is so powerful, because it's not smoke and mirrors. It's not something we sell. It's something that has changed each one of our lives. And we really believe in it. We really live it, whether we're inside the academy or out. What do you think about this, Mr. Holt? I'm anxious to get your opinion on like the cultural ritual rules pieces of an activity that people.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did not start doing martial arts until I was in my mid-20s. Okay. So I did not grow up doing this. You know, I kind of admired martial arts from afar growing up. You know, I loved different things like the Ninja Turtles, Mortal Kombat, all that cool stuff. And yeah, so for me, when I actually got my job at Karate America, you know, I was really like excited by all the things that we were doing, because I'm a very traditional person. You know, I love having different traditions. I've created a lot of different traditions with my family and friends over the years. And, you know, just I think that the thing I love so much about traditions, and my story would be that this is why a lot of people love tradition, is it provides some stability. You know, it's like, I know that every day at this time, I'm going to be doing this one thing, or every year at this time, I'm going to be doing this one thing. And for me, that's just super cool, having that stability, and just kind of anchors me. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it anchors me. And, you know when I come to school or I come to work for the day, I bow into the school. Like, that's a tradition that I just always had. And just having that tradition, that tradition in itself, it does what it said it does. You know, what we say it does. It puts me in the mindset that I'm going to do my best at work that day. Yeah. You know, whether it be with the kids, whether it be with my team, it just puts me in that mindset. So I think that's what really drew me to martial arts from what I was doing. I was working in the academics before this. So when I got to this job, you know, just it was completely different than working in a school setting. So yeah, absolutely love it. It really grounds me, and it reminds me of my purpose and who I am, the traditions that we have.
Yeah, I love that. And some of that, a lot of what you're saying resonates with me as well. And I think too that in our I feel like our society is very individualized, right? And very, very about the I and maybe my nuclear family, and which is great in some ways. However, there aren't a lot of places out there, I think, and avenues where we can be a community and have that not just be like a word, like, oh yeah, we're part of a community, but these rituals and these practices really bind us together. You know, we all bow on the floor. We all know to take our shoes off before we walk out onto the training floor. We all know to use Mr. and Mrs. and not first names. We all wear the same uniforms or the same apparel. I mean, I think that's for me, that's a very connecting, bonding piece. For any of you watching on the live stream, either on YouTube or Facebook, let us know in the comments, drop a comment. Let us know what your favorite maybe tradition or ritual around martial arts is. Do you love the bow? Do you love the Mr. and Mrs.? Do you like the might for right at the end? That's another really great one that people like. Some of the call and responses people just really, really get into. And I'd love to hear for either you or your kids, which culture tradition pieces have spoken to you or are speaking to you right now on your martial arts journey. I love this comment from Mrs. Pieper. There's so much chaos in the world. Karate America provides a great base of all things good in life. Absolutely. And then we have Mr. C. Holt saying, I love the might for right. I do too, sir. And I always thought I'm so glad that we do a more effective job now of telling our students what that is and why we do it. And I remember when I used to listen to a lot of classes, especially with the little kiddos, they would say different things like light for right and sort of like I survive, and they weren't quite sure what we were saying. So I'm really glad now that we do a more effective job of that. I remember once we were marching at a parade in Brookfield, and I think it was I remember Mr. Stavropoulos, that was your close friend, Mr. Kozlowski, one of our great instructors. It was his dad, and they were just a beginning family. I think it was the first year that they were a karate family. And Mr. Stavropoulos Sr. has a big booming voice, and he like lifted his fist up and he was like, "Might for right." And I was like, oh, it was like such a great moment to hear that kind of like culture piece out in the crowd of the parade. It was a really proud moment. So why do you think that? I know you've both talked about this a little bit, but your experience specifically, and I love hearing your personal experiences with culture and reverence and tradition. Why specifically do you think kids enjoy this? Because it feels a little counterintuitive, this being martial arts. Kids want to run around and go crazy. Why would they enjoy doing something with a bunch of rules and parameters? Why do you think?
Right. No, go for it, sir.
Sorry. I think that's really great. I think that the general idea in the world is that kids don't like structure and discipline. Mm-hmm. I believe to my core that that's just actually untrue, right? I don't think kids dislike that at all. I think they crave it. What they crave is a consistent structure that is fun also, right? Mm-hmm. Just be structured, right? And that is what we are to a T. I mean, that is what we do right to it. When kids don't have structure, when anyone doesn't have structure for that matter, to me it's more obvious in kids because they don't have as much coping mechanisms as adults have developed. But when anyone doesn't have enough structure and the world is just unknown, I don't know how to succeed. I don't know if I do this, is this the right behavior or not? It can be really confusing and it can be difficult. When I stepped onto that mat for my third or fourth class and I knew the rules and I knew exactly how to succeed, I know if I snap to attention and my back is up tall and I smile and I bow with my instructor, I know that I'm doing the right thing. And every time I succeed at that, that boosts my confidence. Succeed if I don't know what success looks like.
Yeah.
So that structure, it's defining what success looks like and then offering it for the kids and giving them reinforcement for when they choose to succeed. I think there are few things out there like that right now. I think the world is not completely true. Ms. Whaley, absolutely structure, right? And I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. What do you think, Mr. Holt, about why do kids enjoy something with on the outside looks like it's a bunch of rules?
Yeah, Mr. Kozlowski, you took everything I was going to say. But, totally fine. So he's absolutely right. One of the things that kind of shocked me when I first started studying child psychology in school is that kids really do crave and need structure. They thrive with structure. And we provide that. That's what we provide with our culture, with our tradition, with everything that we do at Karate America. It's all about structure. And I think even more importantly is that parents want the kids to have structure. So we provide that. And I let the parents know, I mean, that's part of the introductory lesson. We tell them that structure is a huge piece of what we do. So that's one big thing. The other thing is that, sorry, what was I going to say? It does, having that structure, I think does go a really long way in, developing the confidence in the students. I know, like, I think just because of what we teach and how we teach it, confidence just comes from that. We try to do as much praising and encouraging as we can in class. And I absolutely think kids love that. One of the coolest things that I've learned at Karate America when it comes to, just managing a group of children is to always, praise students. And that just fixes behavior in other students that you wouldn't even expect it. So kids are really looking for that. And when they are seen doing something awesome, it just boosts their confidence. And that's really fun to see. And I know that kids love it and I love to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you bring up a great point, and you kind of mentioned this in a bullseye way, Mr. Kozlowski. I think for kids and adults, when we have this clear like roadmap of do this and do it in this way, and you will be successful. And oh, by the way, we don't want to turn you into a robot without a personality and a soul and your own art, within those parameters. But here are the guidelines, here are the parameters. Now do this and do it to the best of your ability and be awesome. It is amazing to me what both kids and adults will do. And I think, my experience has been, I don't know if you guys have had this experience too, but even adults, I mean, in our lives, we don't have a lot of opportunity for that. I mean, we maybe have like job, possibly with some rules, and the rest of the world is just kind of like go out and figure it out. And it is sort of in some ways like comforting and refreshing to go twice a week and I put on this uniform and I do these things and I just keep working really, really hard. And I will hit goals and I will become a better person. That's really inspiring. Has that been your experience too, both as people who train as adults and working with adults?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the having that roadmap and being able to hit it, it's like, who doesn't like to win, right? I don't mean win like get first place win, but who doesn't succeed in some way, shape, or form? I think everyone does, whether it's a small victory or a big one. And what structure does, it gives us a chance to see, I can win by saying yes, sir, by bowing with my instructor, by saying might for right at the end in unison with the rest of my class, right? That's the way that I can succeed. I think another big point with the structure and everything is it builds trust.
Mm-hmm.
I and Mr. Holt both bow with each other before we do our technique. Trust is built because we're both doing the same thing and we know what our part is and we play it. When I say might for right, I'm building trust, and there's this trust that everything's going to be the way that it's supposed to because we have that structure, we have that roadmap, that guideline. And you mentioned Mrs. Cork, Mr. Stavropoulos. He's one of my best friends who's actually in my wedding. And him and another one of my close friends, the three of us were all in martial arts together. And, we hung out outside of that. And we saw each other at school a little bit, but a large portion of our time we spent together was in martial arts. Those are the two people I trust the most probably in my entire life, besides my wife, right? Those are the two people that I trust the most, and trust is built with that structure. Right?
Yeah,
I crave it.
yeah, we know what to expect, and so I think we can be. I mean, I think that a really special relationship that exists between a student and instructor, even more so than like a coach. It's a really sacred relationship between an instructor and a student, and so much trust has to be built because that instructor is going to take that student places that the student, like, we don't even know ourselves if we can go there and be safe and be successful. So the trust and the culture and the tradition pieces, I think, show up a lot there. I wanted to pivot now, if we could, to just getting into a little bit of the nuts and bolts around culture and tradition. So two things that stand out to me as being something that has been showing up in martial arts for before any of us were born, let alone before any of us were in martial arts, which is forms and weapons. So let's talk first about forms in martial arts, because I think that's something that just about everybody who trains or has a student that trains kind of knows what we're talking about. Can you speak a little bit about, like, so why do we even do forms in karate? Like, is it choreography? Why do we even do forms, and how do those fit in as culture pieces for our martial arts?
This is a big question. Forms are integral to a lot of martial arts, right? And certainly when I was coming up through the ranks, forms were, I had to memorize all my forms, be ready for my forms for black belt, and I think a lot of my students feel the same way.
Yeah.
And I would say in some ways, a form is like a manifestation of what we've been talking about, right? It's this routine. So a form is a routine, and I do the same moves in the same order.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I do it, I am trying my best to refine those moves and trying to get a little better. I'm going to block with a little more power, or kick with my back up just a little bit taller, right? But it's the same thing every time. Every time I do journey, I know I'm doing journey, right? Mm-hmm. And so there is a little bit of that structure that's built in. But I also find it's a great way, just like I said before, to have a roadmap for your success.
Mm-hmm.
if instead of doing forms, it was just, you know, throw any 5 moves you want to, every single class, it's different, right? Then I wouldn't know if I'm actually getting better or not. Am I getting close to my target or not?
Yeah.
There's a structure to follow. I know I do knife hand blocks, step over, punch, right? And now I can see over time, am I getting better at that? There's a saying, you know, how many times does it take to master something? 10,000 times, right? Most people like to be a master at something after 3 or 4 times, you know, and then move on to something else. I want to learn something new, something different, right? But I did not master my form in 4 times. I'm still working on my journey for my 4th degree test. And Mr. Quirk was with me, his 6th degree test. We did journey. We did that form because we want to get even better, master a little bit more.
It's chop wood, carry water, right? Keep chopping wood and carrying water. And I think too, you know, for me, it's also been explained to me that the forms are representing, I mean, martial arts is the art of war. And right. And so that's where our roots and our tradition come from in the practice. And even though, thank goodness, we aren't actually using those moves to literally defend our families and our homes, traditionally, I mean, you guys talk about knife hand blocks and punches and things like that. I mean, this is where the farmers in the rural areas, because they couldn't have weapons, they made weapons out of their farm implements, which we're going to talk about in a moment. And they practice these sort of like self-defense moves, and they practice them together in a unified way. And I think what's really interesting for me here in 2021 is that you all that actually do the forms put so much art to it. And when I see somebody really do a form really, really well, it's such a beautiful, literally piece of art that I forget that the root of that is in self-defense and in war, and people actually use those moves to defend themselves and their families. But what about you, Mr. Holt? Do you have anything to add about the forms pieces and why we do forms in karate?
Yeah, just a little bit. So when parents come to me for their first introductory lesson, they tell me the different things that they want. And most of the time it's things like structure, confidence, respect, and discipline. And for me, all of those things show up within the form. You know, a kid shows off his confidence by working on the form. A kid can show, or anybody, not just a kid, a martial artist can show off his confidence by working on the form, his control, whether it be with his body or with their yells. And for me, that's like a huge reason that forms, or that's what I think about when I teach forms and when I do forms as well.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you for that. And again, if anybody is watching that is either has experience doing forms yourself as a student or helping your child or your student do forms, let us know in the comments what's your favorite form or what's your favorite piece of form and why. Or do you have a specific form that was always a challenge to you and now you're mastering it? Let us know in the comments what your favorite form or what form really stands out to you. I know most martial artists that I talk to usually have one form that is their favorite and one form, let's say diplomatically, that is their least favorite. Usually different for everybody, but let us know. Now let's shift over to, I know this is a topic that is very, very popular because this is the cool stuff. Let's talk about weapons. So why we are not using farm implements in 2021 in suburbia to defend ourselves? Nobody wants to see a 10-year-old running around with knives. Like, usually when we hear one of the very first things that parents are like, weapons, I want to sign my kid up for a weapons class. It sounds a little, again, counterintuitive. Can you speak to us about why we do weapons in our curriculum and what's that used? Why, when people are doing weapons, what are we actually working on when we're doing that practice of using weapons? And please list which weapons we use in our curriculum too, because maybe not everybody knows which weapons we use.
Yeah. So first, I wanna say, Mr. Wade, I agree with you. Chung Mu, that's my favorite form too. I like that one a lot. That's not. Oh, and Mr. Pieper, I like that you differentiated Chung Mu from Freedom. One's favorite, one's hardest. So really cool. I love it. Mrs. Apt, it's great to see that you're on here too. I'm glad Savannah enjoys doing her forms. That's awesome. If a student can love forms, they're going to have an easier time than if they don't.
That's for sure.
So good for her.
Yeah.
We have at Karate America, at least in Brookfield and Pewaukee, and I don't know as much about Oregon, but we do 4 different weapons: bow staff, kamas, sword, and nunchuck. All right, the bow staff's the long stick. The the nunchucks are the two short sticks roped together. The kamas are the little sickle scythe-looking blades, and then the sword. I hope everyone knows what a sword is. It's in pop culture, right? The ninjas wield that way. And it's so. First of all, each weapon, in my mind, is another opportunity to expand what we're already learning with martial arts. A weapon is just an extension of my body, and I'm just learning different moves like I would in martial arts. So for the same reasons I would do a form in karate would be the same reasons I do a weapon form. The only difference is I have to have better control and better precision, because I have to not just control my body, but also this thing that is an extension from my body. And when you see some of the cool forms where they're throwing their weapons up in the air and all that, that takes much more practice and dedication. I have a nunchuck form that I literally have spent the last 5 years working on because there's a toss in it that's very difficult. The transition between certain moves. I don't want to clash the nunchucks together. So there's so much more. It's like adding more difficulty on top. For me, what the weapons do from a standpoint of what's the value of learning them. Mm-hmm. And it really isn't, to Mrs. Cork point, it's not so that kids can run around with knives. Right? In fact, I wouldn't even call what we do with them really using weapons as much as just like training tools. And that
exactly. Yeah.
A little weird, but that's really what it is. First of all, the weapons that we use are not designed in the exact same way that the traditional weapons were.
Yeah.
For instance, a traditional nunchuck, each handle is much thicker and heavier, and there's a longer string, so that if I needed to hit someone real hard, I could have the leverage to do it. Now we have speed chucks, which are thinner, shorter, and the string is much shorter, so I can spin them around super fast and look cool. Right? So we respect tradition and embrace change. That value really, for me, shows up in how we use weapons. Mm-hmm. I could go on. I'll let Mr. Holt go.
Well, no, I was actually sitting here listening to you because this is not something that, I actually know a ton about. So I was sitting here myself learning from you, Mr. Kozlowski. I never really thought about weapons being an extension, of who we are as martial artists, but that's a really cool way to think about that, and I'm stealing that. So thank you.
Good. I'm glad I could steal something.
Yeah, the precision that it's so impressive to me, and if any adults or parents are watching that haven't stepped in to take some classes, even just like a trial for a few weeks. I know Mr. Pieper talked about this a couple episodes ago, but please, I invite you, if you have a child or a loved one that takes classes, I really seriously invite you to even just take a few classes and try to do, just even the basic martial arts pieces. It changes for me personally, it changes as somebody who watched martial arts for years and years and years in the gallery and then actually stepped onto the floor and tried to do things. It is a whole different world when I really understand what it takes to make these things happen. The kicks and the chambers and the forms and the blocks and the sparring and the weapons. I mean, I remember my first day working with chucks, and I was like, every time I see no drama somebody do an amazing chucks form like Mr. Kozlowski, I'm just like, they are a genius. I don't know how they do it. So it gives me so, and commas too. It gives me so much more respect for what the intricacy and the complexity of what martial artists do when I have to step in to classes. So there's my little plugs for parents to step out and take a class, because weapons just stand out to me as something that really looks kind of easy, and it's so difficult, so difficult. We have a couple comments to circle back here. Mr. Quirk is saying, I love how martial arts is an individual practice held in a community setting. Very true. I come with my own individual mastery. However, I don't do it alone. I like that. Mrs. Jury back on forms is saying, forms, they can be a challenge, but learning them and working with different instructors can give you insight to many different pieces to help make your form even better. I don't know that they're ever truly mastered. You nailed it, Mrs. Jury. Well said. Ms. Kaniewski here, getting very specific. I always like the variety and direction changes in Chung Mu. I love that comment. And Ms. DeWade is saying, my favorite is watching instructors add their own personal flair into a form while performing. That is really, really fun. I like that too. Mr. Jury's chiming in here. Journey, freedom, inspire. I don't really know any different ones. I do, however, like to step up to the next level. Not that journey's not good, just like the next step. Well said. Well said, Mr. Jury. So Mr. Kozlowski, what's your favorite weapon? Is it nunchucks?
Oh, absolutely. I started karate. One of the many reasons I started karate was because I wanted to be Michelangelo the Ninja Turtle. And I know many other people actually have a similar story where there's a character or someone that they saw and they were like, "Ooh, I want to be that."
That's awesome. Everybody leave some turtle emojis for Mr. Kozlowski if you were with them. Turtle emojis. Yeah. Sorry, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. And if you're wondering how much I love the Ninja Turtles, I actually have a pet turtle, and his name is Michelangelo. In case you're wondering,
that is true.
It's at that level for me. But yeah, the nunchucks got to be my favorite. I remember my first class trying to do nunchucks, and I've never been so equally frustrated and excited about life. And I think this is true about martial arts in general, but I think that weapons take it to the next level. The only way to get good is to do it a bazillion times, right? And for weapons, it's not even I do the same chuck form a bazillion times. It's I pick one of those moves, one throw or one hand roll, and I do it, I drop it, I pick it up, I do it. Look at all those turtles. You guys rock. That's awesome. We got a turtle army going on.
There you go, Mr. Kozlowski.
This is really cool. Mrs. Kozlowski's got to show this to Michelangelo at home.
Well, Mrs. Bray and I don't want to leave out too many secrets, but Mrs. Bray and I are working on getting some pretty cool things for our Karate America community pets to be sporting here this summer. So I haven't forgotten about Michelangelo. My earnest hope is that he will be sporting some KA swag on his shell, maybe here.
That would be amazing.
Maybe we'll have him on as a guest on the live stream. I
he would love that. Maybe you would love that, or you freak out. I don't know.
No. We have your cat, your turtle, my dog. It'll be a good live stream.
That would be fun.
But I digress. Mr. Holt, what about you? Which one of the weapons that you either have used yourself or that you've seen other people use, which one really speaks to you?
So I really love escrimas. Though that's what we don't do sword, we do escrimas. Okay. And we save sword for our legacy students. But I love the escrimas for two different reasons. One of my, also like Mr. Kozlowski, one of my favorite comic book characters uses escrimas. Nightwing from Batman. He's awesome. But he uses escrimas, so that's really cool.
Okay, so we need some bat emojis for Mr. Holt then.
Some bat emojis.
Get some bat emojis going we got some turtles now. We need some bats.
But yeah, no. And I can't really pinpoint why exactly I like it so much, but I think when we started doing it, it was just it was peaceful because we did pretty much all of our eskrima work with partners, just going back and forth, hitting the eskrimas, and just getting into a rhythm. And I think for the third thing is that, to be honest, if I ever need to defend myself, that would be the most effective weapon to defend myself with. Maybe not effective, but maybe readily accessible, just 2 sticks, but I absolutely love escrimas. They're just fun to, hit against other sticks.
It's funny you mention that about them being really practical, because I've been binging some episodes of Walking Dead, and I was pointing out, last night I was like, don't anybody, no spoilers, because I'm just I think I'm on episode or season 10 or something. Anyway, so there's a guy with a mask, and I was like, this guy's weapon of choice against zombies is commas, and Mr. Quirk is dumb choice, and bad choice, and I just kind of so it's Michonne has the sword, and what's his name has the commas, but and there actually was a character from a while ago that I think he had either had escrimas or Joe staff, I can't remember which, but
he had a bow.
Did he have a bow? I thought it looked smaller to me, but anyway. We just need to get somebody on there with chucks, and we'll have the whole curriculum represented on Walking Dead. So you're getting some bad emojis here.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Warms my heart.
Yeah.
some love for Nightwing.
Yeah.
It is coming in. So we're getting some participation for the KA pet swag. She doesn't know she's got a pretty rockin' ninja betta fish at home.
Right. How do we get a beta fish to wear Karate America gear? You gotta, if someone knows how to do that.
Hey, how do we get to yes? You know what I mean? Maybe just like a little flag out of the tank. We'll figure something out. If anybody can figure out, it's gonna be Ms. DeWade.
Yes. I expect nothing less.
Some sidekick snails. Okay.
That's wonderful.
So, so getting back to the culture and tradition piece, one thing that I wanted to ask you specifically about, Mr. Holt, is you recently went through a shift, a pretty major shift at Karate America Oregon. And I would love for you to kind of walk us through what that shift was like. And I know you talked to me about it before you did the shift and kind of in the middle of it. And it was a shift that was really, to me, speaks to our brand, purpose, culture, tradition, reverence. So I know ahead of time I kind of emailed this to you, like I hope you don't mind sharing, but it's just such an amazing story. I would love to hear you talk about what recently happened with your team at KA Oregon.
Yeah, so we made the shift to calling all of our team members at Karate America by their surnames. In the past, we've always, ever since I started working there, we've always called black belts by their surnames, no matter what age they were. And then I think about a year ago, I started making the shift to calling all adults or all parents that come into Karate America by their surnames. And then just like a few months ago, I just brought it to, Mrs. Whaley, the owner, and I'm like, hey, I feel like there's a little bit of a disconnect between, how we address parents and how the students and parents address us. So I was just like, hey, I think we should just make the shift to all adults going by their surnames. And so what I did is I got the approval from Mrs. Whaley, and we went ahead and what I did is I started announcing it in classes. We would do our mad chats. I would sit everybody down and explain why we were making the shift. And I didn't expect the feedback and like the support to be so, positive. I mean, I maybe had one parent who was like kind of off put by it. Not off put's not even the right word. She was just more surprised by it.
Okay.
So, I'm calling you Mr. Will for years, and now I'm calling you Mr. Holt. But even her, she was very, on board with it. So yeah, like in my mind, it's way more respectful to call an adult by their surname. And, the parents see, or the kids see us doing that with the parents. And the biggest reason that I really wanted to do it is because I wanted the kids to see us do that with one another, the other team members in there. And I wanted them to also have practice calling us by their surname so they can get that practice for when they go out into the world and when they are communicating with other adults, just to have that, practice and being respectful, and yeah, we sent a letter out to all the parents, and Mrs. Whaley sent a letter out to all the parents, just explaining more of the why, more of more of the why of what we're doing. And again, feedback's been very positive. It's still an ongoing process. Going from 10 years or however long the school's been going till now. Just a lot of people are just having to change their mindsets, or not even mindsets. It's just we just slip up.
Yeah, right.
Even with the team, we still do it with one another.
We don't love change, we humans, right?
Right. It's not easy.
We're faced with change, and there's a little bit of a learning curve there. That's I really love that story, and I love that you raised your hand and brought it up to Mrs. Whaley. I love that you pushed that, Mr. Holt. For us, in Karate America, Pewaukee, Brookfield, worldwide, it's such an important culture piece, and I almost I can't imagine not having it. So, and bravo to you too for doing something that, to your point, it's in our culture, right? There is this little bit of a static if I'm going to take somebody from a casual place to a not casual place. It's like, I don't know if you guys have experienced this over the years, but when we talk about, when Mr. Quirk and I are out meeting other people that aren't in the martial arts field, we say, oh, last name's Mrs. Quirk, Mr. Quirk, and that's what we do at our academies. It's like, oh, Mr. Quirk is my dad, call me Jeff. And it's this very sort of like off-putting, there's almost a negative connotation to it. Like, once in our culture, I think in Western culture, once we become close, we use first names. When we're not close and we're further away, we use last names. But what's interesting is in the martial arts and karate America, it's the opposite, right? When we're in, we use last names, and people sort of on the outside, we use first names. So it's sort of different than we have in other areas of the world. What do you think about that, Mr. Kozlowski? What's been your experience with the surnames and with your parents and with even with you as a student over the years?
Yeah. So with, it's interesting what you said. For me, I think a lot of people that I've met not in the martial arts industry, it's almost like if I want to be polite to someone, I'm going to say, oh, you can call me by my first name.
Yep.
It's kind of a way to show politeness. Not, in most of the Western world, like you said, that's how we show politeness, is actually inviting each other to say us by our first name.
Yep.
Whereas it's the opposite in karate. How do I show politeness? By using your last name. Mm-hmm. And I try to do my best to concisely explain this to every new student. Is to say, this is how I'm going to show you respect, and I want to show you respect. I want to do that. And I'll even get a lot of families who I might mispronounce their last name on the first attempt, and they'll say, "Oh, it's fine, just say how you." And I'll make a point to say, "No, please do correct me, because I want to show respect, and the best way I can do that is if you correct me, so I know how to say it properly." Yeah,
right. Accountability.
As a student, when I was 11 years old, I looked up to my instructors. I called them by last name. So, a lot of those instructors were teenagers, not even a couple years older than me. Really, and so it's really interesting. But to me, they were Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so.
Yeah.
That was a line. And one of my favorite feelings was the first time someone called me Mr. Kozlowski.
Yeah.
I finally got to that point where I wasn't just a student anymore. Yeah. I was now leading other people. And it wasn't like a planned thing. I just remember being on the floor and someone being like, "Mr. Kozlowski, come on over here." And I was like, "That's right." And I made that shift. I was no longer the 11-year-old kid who started karate. I think I was 14 at the time. I was now a young man who was a figure for other students to look up to.
Yeah.
By having that last name kind of thrust upon me, it was like I now have to step up to the plate, and now I am a figure, and that changed the way I act. That changed the way that I looked at things, and I had to be a better person now, which is one of the best things that ever happened to me. It helped. It gave me some kind of figure to step up to become, and it's something special. We don't have that right now in a lot of places in the Western world, like you said.
Yeah. I remember. It's funny you say that, because I remember when I used to work up at the front desk, and after we would have like a black belt graduation, and the kids, because we do always in our schools, we call all adults, regardless of rank or anything like that, Mr. Mrs. And we call kids that are under first degrees, that are under belts, by their first names. And then when kids earn their black belts, we can call them, go from being Johnny Smith to Mr. Smith, earn their first degree. And so it was always fun standing up there in the front office and watching those new kids come in for their first master's team classes. And they got like the new red uniforms on, and they would walk in and they'd always say, "Hi, hi, Mrs. Quirk." And I would say, "Hi, Mr." and use their last name, like, "Hi, Mr. Kozlowski." And just that sort of like physical change. And like for a minute, they'd look around and not know who I was talking to. And I swear those kids walked differently from, in the door when I said their last name and they were wearing their black belt uniform. That was always a really, really cool thing to say, that the shift is real. And for me, like both of you are talking about, it's like how we do something is how we do everything. So how, when we're talking about reverence and we talk to our students about purpose and values, and a martial artist that had been doing it a lot for many, many years before I even met him years and years ago said, "I don't call people by their surnames because it's this ego thing about them. I call them by their surnames because of the respect that I have from who I want to be." Right. So I'm not going to, even if somebody gives me permission, I'm still going to use the Mr., Mrs., Ms., no matter where, because that's who I am. And that's always really stuck with me about, how we do something is how we do everything, and purpose. Anything else you wanted to add in there, Mr. Holt, about maybe the shifts or the changes that you've seen in the culture at KA Oregon since you've implemented that? Because I think that was a really courageous and on purpose thing to do.
No, I mean, I think you're right. For me, it's really cool to hear Mr. Holt. It's also really cool for me to say like Mr. Holt for my brother, or Miss Brenham for one of my other team members. Like it's really cool saying that. And like I said, the biggest reason that I wanted to do it is because I wanted the kids to see the respectful relationship that we have amongst the team and between the parents. Like that's huge for me, is having the kids see that. And I need some more data, but I think it's making a positive shift in how the kids view adults and respect.
Yeah. And I love what you're saying about that being in purpose and in love, because Mr. Quirk always said, and I know you've heard him say this before, Mr. Kozlowski, and you've probably heard me say it before, but the world is full of Will and Noah and Jen. They don't need that. They need a Mr. Holt. They need a Mr. Kozlowski. They need a Mrs. Quirk. And so it's really, really, truly not about us. This isn't like, call me Mrs. Quirk. This is, you call me Mrs. Quirk because we love you so much and we want this experience for you, the students and families. And trust me, it seems like a little piece, but it's going to build and strengthen the experience that you have as martial arts families, I promise. Were you going to say something, Mr. Kozlowski?
Yeah, actually, while you guys were both talking, something struck me that I didn't even remember, but I wanted to say now. When Mr. Holt, you said you love calling your brother Mr. Holt. There's something cool about that. It's kind of a way you can show respect and even love in a way. Mr. Stavropoulos is right. We mentioned him a couple times. It's hard not to, because he's
talking about mispronouncing names over the years.
Right, exactly.
Families for a while had Mr. Kozlowski and Mr. Stavropoulos.
Yes. His favorite joke was to, whenever he said that, he would be like, "We're looking for a Smith or a Johnson. Anyone? Anyone want to come in? Yeah, anyone." But no, it's interesting because he and I will talk on the phone, and I want to say, now that I'm thinking about it, about 50% of the time when I pick up the phone, he'll go, "Mr. Kozlowski, how's it going?" He will. We're not at work. We're not at Karate America. He has worked at Karate America for multiple years now, but he will every now and again say it, because when he says that, he and I, having been in this now together for so long, we know that there's a different meaning to it. Yeah. He's like, he just wants to start the conversation by saying, "Hey, I respect you a lot." And it's this little thing that's really interesting. And sometimes it's played off as sort of a joke, and sometimes it's played off, as it is. But it's something interesting that now that I reflect on it, I didn't think about it in that way since before we had this conversation, but now I'm realizing, yeah, that's something we do. And I probably call him Mr. Stavropoulos, well, not as much as his first name, because that's a mouthful. And his first name is easier, and we are on that page to use first name, but I use it more often than I think people would guess.
Yeah, well, because
we're close friends. So.
Yeah. Right. And I think it's like we said before, I mean, this isn't like a costume that we put on and off. This is who we are. I think it's who you guys are with each other. Mrs. Jury saying, "I'll raise you a Milkovich." I go by syllable.
Yeah, which I got correct on my first try. I'm still proud of that. There are some names that I'm to say that I got correct on the first try, and Milkovich is one of them.
Ms. DeWade is saying, "When I am Ms. DeWade, I am truest to myself, and the academy are out. It makes a difference." I agree. It's interesting how, the words, we know what we're doing our training, being explicit about things rather than implicit. There's so much power there. And even the rituals that we talked about tonight in our conversation, the bowing, the holding the weapons, the folding up of our belts, the rolling up of our sleeves, these pieces, they all build into our experience, and we are able to actually, I think, express this really intimate and good part of ourselves when we have these pieces to sort of, like, I don't want to say lean on, but they sort of become like our tools that we use to, like you said, Mr. Kozlowski, show an extension of my best and my truest self. Mrs. Jury is saying, "Yes, you did nail that, Mr. Kozlowski. Good work." Well, listen, we are somehow, this happens every time, we are somehow just about the end of our hour. So I don't know about you guys, but I thought it was a great conversation tonight. I had a lot of fun. I'm really, really grateful for both of you taking time out of your night at the end of a long night of teaching classes and running operations at the academies for talking to us tonight. I wanted to give one shout out because I promised Mr. Jay Hansen that I was going to do this tonight, but this was my first night tonight. I sat in on some worldwide classes for the adult class, and Mrs. Hansen and Mr. Hansen, I noticed tonight, are in their blue uniforms. So that is a really big deal, and I just wanted to congratulate them if they're watching, or if they're watching this later on. Congratulations on talk about culture and ritual and choice. Mr. Quirk is saying culture is a choice. It absolutely is. It's something that we don't just get, we create again and again. And I love that the Hansons stepped into creating that culture and that commitment to Black Belt with their blue uniforms. So, wow. And one last announcement, guys. Everybody who's watching, many of my adult friends are thanking me for this. Starting next week, we are moving the live stream to 8 p.m. Central. So all of you who are trying to like hold your eyelids open with toothpicks from 9 to 10, and our friends out on the East Coast that are tuning in at 10 p.m., no more. Starting next week, we have a really, really special guest, guys. We're going to have Mr. Reed. He's the founder of the Karate America system, and he's going to be our special guest next week. And it's going to be our first live stream at 8 o'clock. So I'll be putting more announcements out there. Yeah. Hey, good job, Mr. Hansen. Congratulations on your uniform, on your blue uniform. So next week, guys, start tuning in at 8 p.m. Central for our live stream. Thank you so much for everybody tuning in tonight. It's been an awesome show. It's been an awesome live stream. Please, if you haven't already, go to our YouTube channel. It's Karate America Community. And the biggest thing that you can do to really help us out is subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment. It matters for us on our YouTube algorithm. So thanks everybody for joining us tonight. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Mr. Kozlowski. Thank you, Mr. Holt.
Yes, ma'am. No, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. Keep being on purpose.